Hi, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with another PB&J card class and some holiday inspiration. And here's a look at the card that we will be creating today. For this card, I was once again inspired to create something using only our creative dies. There's actually no stamping or inking with this, just lots of cardstock. And actually on this card I did a lot of white on white, which is something I think is really beautiful and elegant, especially for the holidays, to work with just lots of white on white die cuts and the white on white background. And then the focal point here I've done in a bright color to really draw the eye to that ornament and the sentiment. So real quick before we begin creating this card, I wanted to pop up a list of all the supplies used in creating it, and I will put this back up on screen at the very end of the video. So if you want to look at that in more detail, you can go ahead and just hit pause at that time and check it out. So to begin on this card, I'm using three of our creative die sets, and the first one I'm using is our ribbon stacker set. And I love sets like this that you can use year-round, anytime. They're very versatile. And to start with, I cut the largest ribbon stacker from a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of cardstock, and this is creating a frame effect. So I'm actually using the negative piece first from the ribbon stacker, and I cut this from watercolor paper. So even though I'm not doing any painting or watercolor, I like the texture that it adds around this outer edge of the card, and it's not quite a pure white. So when doing a lot of white on white die cutting, just having something that's not quite perfectly white or a perfect match adds to sort of the depth and dimension you can get when you're layering on top of it. Next, I am using the die cut piece, the ribbon stacker piece, and I'm going to glue several of these frames right on the inside of the card. And by sort of stacking and gluing them together, you get lots of dimension to this frame, and it's very easy to glue and adhere to the card by having that outer portion on there. So not only does that give a nice visual effect, but it also makes it easier to construct. I cut several using the Nina Solar White cardstock, and I also cut I think one or two from watercolor paper, just because it's a little bit thicker, because I wanted things to be nice and thick and sturdy and strong. And this is something that I think gets lost a little bit in photos, but in person, the depth of just layering a few of those together is just a really fun effect. Now you could do this first step for any type of card and fill in the inside with a stamped impression, other dies. There's so many different ways that you could use this, but it's a great starting point for creating your cards. So I'll just continue to glue several of those together right on top. And I wanted to give you a look here at just sort of that subtle dimension that you get when you glue all of those together. I just love that look, and I think I'll probably be trying that on some more cards. Now next I'm using our new die cut. This is the Ornament branch die. It's very simple but very beautiful and very easy to work with. So I cut several of these from the white Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm just trimming off the ornament, and I'm going to layer these around the perimeter of that frame that I created. So I just play around with the placement and kind of lay them out. I trim off the ornament on each one, and you don't need to die cut that entire ornament either. So you can see on mine they're not quite perfectly die cut. I cut them from my scraps. And as this starts getting put together, I think that white on white is just so effective, especially with this very delicate branch and leaves that are a part of this die. You could, like I said before, you could fill in this center portion with so many different elements. I've laid out what I'm thinking will be the placement for the focal point, just to help me in placing the leaves and the branches around the perimeter. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue at the base of this die cut, and then I'll adhere it down. So I'm not gluing everything flat down. I want it to have some movement, but by putting that adhesive down at the very bottom, it will be strong enough to withstand the mail and getting where it needs to get. And I will just continue to glue those down. And now we're ready to add the focal point, and I'm doing that with adhesive. on the leaves, liquid adhesive, and then a foam square behind the ornament. I've also cut this from 2 other shades of green. So the brightest green I want to show the least, so that is the first layer that I'm putting down. Then I'm going to glue on the other 2 shades of green, just trimming off the ornament on those. There's just no reason or that it needs to be there, and just slightly offset. So this is a way, without doing any inking or coloring or painting or shading on the die cut, that you can get depth and dimension and detail and a finished look to your dies just by layering the same color of cardstocks in lighter or darker shades and slightly offsetting those. Now when I went to do this darker green, I thought perhaps I might want to do it in a completely different arrangement. You can see here I kind of laid that out, but I decided I really liked the look of it just layered right on top. So you wouldn't have to cut that one like I did, but I'm just going to glue that slightly offset like I had done with the sort of that one that's in the middle. And of course it's sticking to me as well as the card. And I'll just grab that other piece and glue it right on. Again, I was kind of playing around with maybe doing it a little bit different, but I ended up liking it this way the best. Now that that is glued on, I also ran the same die through my die cutting machine with some red cardstock so that I can have a nice red ornament. And for the very top of that ornament, I trimmed it off, and I'm just going to color that with a dark marker so it doesn't have sort of a red string hanging down. This design, I've done very classic Christmas colors, but it would also be really nice with if you wanted to have a sparkling ornament, add some stickles, or even cut it from glitter paper. That would be a fun touch that you could add as well. So I'm going to just glue that right on top. Excuse my head there, I just needed to peek and see that things were lined up. And as I was looking at it, I decided to go a little more crazy and add some more of these branches. So I had a lot of them cut and ready to go, and once I had everything done, I just thought it could use a little bit more. And I think because it's white on white, it's okay to add lots and lots of detail this way because it's not colored and so much in your face, and it just goes around that outer border. And that outer border, that ribbon stackers die really gives you a great guide, a great starting place where you can do this layered effect. You could actually do it going all the way around and just stamp a sentiment in the middle of your design. If you wanted it to have a little more shine, for the border portion, you could cut all of those from the same kind of glitter cardstock or even colored cardstock, and then keep your center, like I said, with a sentiment stamped inside or even a die cut sentiment. So to finish this off, I felt like it needed just a little bit more, so I am using our Joyful Winter Sentiment die set, and I'm going to use that word joy. I cut it from craft cardstock, and I'm gluing it directly onto the ornament. Now all of the colors of cardstock and products that I've used, die cuts, everything will be listed on that supply list at the very end of the video. So if you want to check all those out, I will have that listed for you. Just gluing that down on top of the ornament, making sure it's straight. And then I'll also add just a little twine bow here up at the top. And I felt like that just pulled up that craft color up into the leaf portion of the design. And finally, I'm going to take some self-adhesive pearls and scatter them just about through those leaves, and that adds just another layer, another texture, but it's also in the white, so keeping with that tone on tone look around that outer border. And I'll get a few up here in this upper right hand side too. And finally, we'll take a look here at the finished card. I thank you so much for watching today. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website and blog, and I will link to all of those for you down in the YouTube description box below. And stay tuned, like I said, at the very end of the video will be that complete supply list. Thanks for watching.